Do you know what time it is? It's supernatural story time. And if you're easily scared, and even if you're not, there's only one thing left to do. Just turn off the lights, because these are stories that you listen to only in the dark. Skinwalkers and Other Beasties, Volume 4, Story Number 1. I'm a hunter. I like to hunt wild boar specifically. Though I have been deer hunting and have been known to get a turkey for Thanksgiving, I mostly hunt boar. For those of you that don't know, boar are a big problem in the United States. A sow can have 2 litters a year, and it's not uncommon for a litter to consist of 10 or more pigs. Given that pigs eat anything and everything, it's not hard to see why the Department of Fish and Wildlife makes it legal to hunt them with almost no restrictions. In my state, it's illegal to hunt most large mammals with night or thermal vision scopes, with the exception of boar and coyote. I had been saving for a year, mostly fun money. It's hard to explain to your wife that a scope that cost literally twice as much as the rifle I was mounting it was on was worth it. But I did it. I took it to a range and sighted it in. There was an area that was peppered with boar activity that I knew would be perfect for a night hunt. It was easily accessible with my truck, with easy to find spots that I could set up in that overlooked a large, easy to navigate clearing. The night started uneventful. Mostly me tinkering with my new toy, cycling through the settings. I was a little impatient. I'd spotted multiple deer, but they were out of season, like I mentioned earlier. My current setup wasn't legal for deer. I moved to another spot I'd seen days earlier that probably wasn't much better than my first, but it gave me something to do and a new angle to look around with my new scope. After an hour or so of glassing the area, it dawned on me. This spot doesn't have much animal activity at all. No rabbit or owls. The deer that I'd seen were hundreds of yards from where I was. Why was this pocket of land so dead at night, but lively in the day? I'd set up around 10 p.m. and it was about 2 a.m. when I started to think about packing up, maybe setting up a target before I left and taking some practice shots. I heard a crunch come from the direction that came from before. I panned my scope over and saw the silhouette of a small bear pushing through the bushes. It's important to note that my scope isn't exactly night vision. It's a thermal scope, kind of like a black and white version of what you see in the Predator movies. I adjusted my range and zoomed in a little. I remember jolting a little when I saw that it wasn't really a bear. It was a man. Because he was so low and hunched over, I thought I was looking at a young bear. Is that a game warden? It couldn't be. I would have seen the headlights coming up the road from where I was perched. And where could he have walked from? I was 30 miles away from anything and on public lands. I was about to call out when I adjusted my sights and noticed he was naked. No shoes, pants, or anything. I remember being disturbed by his movements, like a squirrel or something, twitchy, and grabbing at the foliage, sniffing around and palming the tree. Was that my tree? The one I'd been leaning against earlier? The thought terrified me. Could he smell me? Then he did something I still have nightmares about today. He squatted and placed his hands in the dirt between his feet and stared straight up like a dog mid-howl. And I heard it. A voice coming from that direction. A very compelling female voice. "Help! I'm lost." There was a long pause, but neither of us moved a muscle. The center of my sights was trained at the dirt in front of his feet. I couldn't bring myself to aim directly at another person. It went against everything I'd been taught about firearms. Were they lost? Was this some guy that had gone crazy out here? Why was his voice so feminine? "Help, please! I can't walk." The voice called out. That's when I called bullshit. Not only could he walk, when I first saw him, he was traversing the land with ease for a naked person. So good I mistook him for a bear. This is an effing trap. This guy's trying to lure me to him with a damsel in distress routine. Luckily, the lack of activity before had caused me to pack up most of my gear. I think I may have left behind a hat and a sitting pad, but I didn't give a shit in that moment. I took my eyes off of him for a moment to get my pack on. I buckled my chest strap and scrambled for my rifle. To my horror, he was in the same position, but his face was staring in my direction, and I swear I saw a smile. The thermal scope has an effect that makes animals' eyes appear white. How the hell had he heard me get up and put on my gear? He must have easily been 150 yards away. Forget it, I screamed in that direction. He stood upright, and it hit me how tall and skinny he was. Easily 6 feet and very lean. He took a couple of long strides in my direction, and I instinctively sent a round sailing above his head into the tree line. He was freaky as hell, but he hadn't really threatened me. What would I tell the cops? I was unwilling and unready to shoot someone. He stopped dead in his tracks and hunched down on all fours. The next one will mess with you. Go away. He stayed on all fours, and this time I had my sights trained on the center of him. His eyes were just above the grass like a large cat or something. I was trying to stop my trembling and knew that my voice had cracked a little on that last warning. I was terrified. That standoff probably only lasted a minute or two, maybe less, but it felt like forever. In an instant, he bolted left towards the tree line opposite the road. So much for not being able to walk. I could barely keep him in my scope. He was moving so fast. He disappeared into the brush, and I sent another bullet sailing high in his direction. I racked another round and tried to pocket that mag and swap for a fresh one, but I dropped it and didn't bother looking for it. I wasn't far from my truck and I wanted to get out of there. I could hear him in the distance, yelling in this weird sound that could have been a laugh or a cry. I scrambled up the trail and arrived at my truck breathless. I tossed my gear into the cab, but kept the rifle in the passenger seat and sped off. For the longest time I told that story from the perspective of having spotted some deranged crackhead living off the land like some kind of caveman. I reported to Fish and Game, but all they did was scold me for hunting at night alone. Never received an update. It wasn't until I told this story at a camping trip that my nephew told me about wendigos, rakes, and skinwalkers. My story scared the you-know-what out of him because the spot we were camping at was technically the same forest I'd seen the bastard just 50 miles east of it. He was so spooked his mom, was my cousin, had to take him home. She was really pissed. I've gone down the rabbit hole on these scary stories. I'm not saying what I saw definitely was a wendigo or a skinwalker. I'm saying that if such a thing exists, I may have dodged quite the bullet that night. Or maybe it was just a tweaker being Donnie Thornberry in the middle of the night. Either way, though, I'm glad I didn't find out what he really was. Next story. I was biking home very late at night. It's about 3 a.m. on the way back from a buddy's about 2 kilometers away. It was insanely foggy, and I was about a quarter of the way home, passing the last streetlight before the foggy darkness consumed the road. I heard my name called in a friendly voice, but really loud. It was distinct, and my name is long and has a few vowels. There is no way it was an animal call or anything else I'd ever heard. I was high on cannabis and biking along, which was the usual, even at 3 a.m. Thinking quick that it might be a friend or someone I knew, I immediately started to call back, "Hey!" Before I realized, what am I doing? Responding to my name being called out from a foggy farmer's field? Then it dawned on me. This was an old hoarder's house who horribly neglected animals. One time I was hired to burn a bunch of trash on that property, which included dozens of baby cows that died in the winter and were just thawing. At the time I was biking by the guy, was removed and went to jail on related charges. So, back to me. I'm biking through the thickest fog bank I had ever seen, past the last street light on the road, and now I am hearing my name called out from a farmer's field, which I previously helped clear of deceased cows and other horrors. To make matters worse, I just called back, and it's 3 a.m. There were no cars in sight. The night was dead quiet, eerily dampened by the thick fog. By the time I realized all this, which was lowered down by the aforementioned cannabis consumption, I knew I deeply messed up. And if someone or something was calling my name out there, anywhere near me, at that time of night, they meant no good. I turned around so fast, hauled ass back to my friend's house. I slept on his couch that night, even though it was a school night. I was petrified and had a hard time explaining things to my parents as to why I didn't come home. I hope it was in my head, but a big part of me won't let go of knowing that I actually did hear something. Next story. This happened in 2023 in downtown Colorado Springs. We were exploring tunnels close to a river that was close to Fountain Creek. Me and my buddy, we had a pretty strange and utterly terrifying experience. We both enjoy urbexing, discovering a series of underground tunnels like storm drains that probably went as far as a mile and a half. Anyway, we made our way to the tunnels, got our flashlights and my camera, and we were just shooting the shit. And when we got maybe halfway through, the tunnel narrowed to where we were hunched over instead of being able to fully stand up. We then heard a loud scream that sounded like a lady, but not human. Overall, it sounded mostly like a mountain lion screaming. It's terrifying, that sound. After we heard this, we both froze and listened. I was shining my light down the tunnel when I saw something pale moving towards us. I probably only saw it for like 4 seconds until I broke out of my shock and my buddy and I were running hunched over in these dark tunnels. I didn't have my camera video on, but I dropped it, and sure as hell, I was not going to go back to get it. I thought I was hallucinating or something, but my friends saw the exact same thing. The creature we saw was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was completely pale and looked sickly and emaciated. The body looked somewhat human, but not quite. The face resembled that of a horse, not as big as a snout though. Really strange. If I had to compare it to anything, it would be, I don't know, a face that looked like that of a particular picture of the Poplick monster. It's like if you took the head of the Poplick monster photo and placed on the photo of a deer standing on its hind legs. I don't know. I still get the chills even just thinking about this experience. My friend and I vowed to never explore tunnels again. I always thought that there was no such thing as humanoid creatures until I experienced this. I enjoyed listening to Skinwalker stories, but I always thought they were pure fiction. A deep part of me wanted to know what it is and if it was harmful. Did we escape a potentially deadly situation? Why aren't more people seeing these things? There has to be more, right? Why does one have to have a legit photograph of these humanoids? If all you have is an idea of what this could be, I wish someone would tell me. But then do I really want to know? I mean, I've heard of strange stories. Something about in Denver among the homeless population, there's this rumor or legend about something called Hell's Gate, which is basically all the sewer drainage, the catacomb tunnels under Denver. And people say that there's some satanic stuff that goes on there. Others say it's a legit demonic being. Lots of people just say they don't want to talk about it because once you do, it attracts whatever's down there. So I guess I will just stop talking about it, just in case. Next story. So, this is a story my mother told me. These sightings come from Michigan, northwest of Flint, south of Saginaw. The story goes that my parents were driving at night on All Hallows Eve. This was about 1976 to 1979, when suddenly a large, slender, lanky feline animal crossed the street, making them slam on the brakes. When this thing turned its head to look at them, my parents were horrified to see that it had a human face. This happened the following year, same road, same day, which was All Hallows Eve. I don't have much more details. My mother was raised in a family from North Michigan where strange things would happen in the forest, but no one would talk about it. They believed if you didn't give it any attention, at least to the creature, it could not gain power, or something like that. So anytime she would start to bring this up, my father or another family member would shut her down. I'm the curious type. I like to have facts and knowledge. And sometimes I hear similar stories, but nothing exactly like this, even in Native American mythology. Now, I did a little bit of research and maybe it could be a skinwalker, a wampus cat, or something called the Side cat, which in Celtic Scottish mythology was a witch that could transform into a cat 9 times. And if they transformed into a cat for the ninth time, they remained in cat form. This is possibly where cats having 9 lives come from, but then again, that really doesn't answer my question, does it, as to what it was? Next story. I've always been a bit of a believer in the supernatural and the paranormal world, albeit I am skeptical as well. I do my best to try and question and reason anything odd that does occur. Like if a door closes on its own, could it just be the wind or something? Or if something falls, again, the wind? Or was it on a slope? Anything like that. But when you see something that looks almost human, it's really hard to explain. Now, me and my mother live in Australia on the coast. The beach was literally across the road. We lived in a small apartment, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, conjoined kitchen and living room. On the second story, I slept on the couch. At the time, my mother was going through a big breakup. We didn't have much money, we just needed to get out of the house. It was the cheapest we could get at the time, so I wasn't much annoyed by the situation. The couch was situated across from the balcony, which was closed off by a glass door. Luckily, we had curtains. Anyway, my mother just loved getting up early in the morning for a walk. I didn't, especially when it was still a bit dark out, but I had a cute bag I wanted to take. Why? It was for my cat. It was one of those pink dome bags that had a latch on the inside for the cat's harness and a lot of holes for breathing and such. I know it's weird. Taking my cat for a walk, it got her out though. She loved watching outside, and honestly, a few people that were out early loved seeing her. It was cute. My cat was always such a sweetheart. Timid around people, barely mewed unless she wanted attention or was in heat. But I adored her dearly. On this particular morning, we went to go for a walk on the beach. It was our usual walking place, a long stretch of beach to walk on. Sometimes we would see a couple of joggers or maybe one jogger on the beach. Other times we would see someone walking their dogs or walking as a pair. You never saw just one person walking alone. And I mean never. I don't blame them really. You never know who's going to be out there like at 4 or 5 in the morning, especially if it was still somewhat dark out. I suppose that's one reason my mother wanted me to walk out with her. So we set off for the walk. Me, still tired, of course. The three of us, my mother, my cat, and of course myself, left for the beach. Now, one thing is for sure. I hate the beach. Yes, I know. I'm an Australian. I hate the beach. Mostly because I hate sand, getting everywhere. Something to note, with some beaches in Australia, you often enter and exit by a slope of sand which is soft, easy to trip or slide on, and the sand goes everywhere. It was annoying, especially if you wore thongs, an Australian term for flip-flops or sandals. You get them stuck in the sand and it would just flick up. Not that nice for someone who just woke up and is already grumpy and tired, walking around, but it was only a few moments walk, so I just put up with it. We walked for maybe 5 minutes, just chattering about God knows what, and then that's when we saw it. We. I had no idea what it was. The best I could describe it was like a pair of white human-sized pajama pants walking toward us like those night crawlers or skinwalkers. I don't know, but they were similar to those two-legged creatures caught on security cameras. They looked like a pair of faced legs and white pajama pants just walking around. We were freaked. I mean, it was just one figure walking towards us, but it was definitely a distance away. My cat seemed to start getting a bit agitated, which was odd because she never got that agitated unless around real strangers. She was really good in her little bag most days, but apparently not on this occasion. Freaked both me and my mother, and we turned to run back to the slope. My cat started to hiss. Now, it could have been because of my running, but she never hissed. I mean, never. Even if I moved her around a lot. Even if I pet her belly or just played around with her, she never hissed. If she got annoyed, she would either attack my hand or run off. She didn't really do any damage. She was gentle with her scratches on me. I know that probably sounds weird, but compared to my mother's cat, her scratches were nothing. So it worried me that she had started to hiss. After all, cats, dogs, and most animals usually have That sort of sixth sense, I guess. I looked back and the thing was closer. But see, the thing was, it was close. Not super close. Not deadly close. But for the way it walked, it was closer to us than it should have been. We had been running, but that thing we thought was just walking. I'd say it could take 5 or 6 minutes for it to reach the slope. Our place was literally a minute away. Naturally, we hurried back, and I just wanted to rest. I know, even after such a sight, but I was exhausted. I let my cat out, which literally just took a few moments, and I had just slipped out of my shoes. I went to close the curtain. It only took me like 3 minutes to do that. But what I saw freaked the you know what out of me. My mother had already gone to shower at that time. Even after what had happened, she knew I just like to get more sleep after a walk. I'm not the fittest, so I did get exhausted quickly. But across from the apartment was that thing, just on the other side of the road, just standing there. And sure enough, even without glasses, I could make out that it was just one of those creatures. I couldn't make out the details, given I did need glasses. All I knew was it wasn't human. Just like two legs. Or something. I don't know. It was terrifying. I closed my curtain and went to tell my mother. Needless to say, I didn't get any more sleep. At all. And both our cats were on edge. Even my mother's cat, who hadn't been with us. Next story. When I was really young, probably about 5 or 6, my family went camping. At the tippy top of the mountain, you really couldn't get higher on said mountain. There was a lake where we were camping next to, so of course my family was fishing. My dad and mom, my uncle and I were on the shore trying to get some fish. Across the shore on the other side of the small lake, my dad had noticed a huge brown-black humanoid figure just standing there, still, and it faced and looked at us. It had to have been over 8 feet tall, maybe even taller, since it was so far away. So like any human would naturally do, my dad tried yelling at it, since he thought it was a prank of some sort. I don't remember what my dad said, but I remember the sound the creature made back. It wasn't anything we understood, just a kind of unintelligible screeching. It did, however, sound like he knew what he was saying, if that makes sense. Like he was saying something to us only in his language. We were all looking at it at that point. My grandparents and my big brother had joined us. I remember my parents attempted to recreate the screeches he was saying, and he would respond. This went on for just a couple of minutes. Then the creature took off. And I mean took off. Mind you, the entire time he was on 2 feet, much like a human. He turned and started running towards the forest, and was out of sight in seconds. He had to have been running like 25 or 30 miles an hour. My brother, grandpa, and dog tried chasing it, definitely the smart thing to do, and went to where we had seen him and in the direction I had left him. They did find a huge lump of black hair that was stuck in a barbed wire fence, although I'm not certain it was really from the creature. Well, we didn't leave. We spent the night in our tents. It was very windy, and I don't think anyone actually slept. I think about what happened from time to time, but honestly, isn't that rare of an encounter in Utah? And as a matter of fact, in the entire Northwest. I promise, my family's not a bunch of kooks. Well, maybe a little, but not in the sense we all make up things just for the sake of an encounter story. Next story. When I was about 7, my brother and I were vacationing with my grandparents in southwest Colorado. There were a few other kids around the area we were in, and we would typically get together and play near the creek or in the rock forts or wander around camp. I remember one day, 2 older kids, a boy and a girl, that invited my brother and I to hike up a long trail that we had been told to stay away from. The strangers assured us we wouldn't go far and we would be perfectly safe with them. They had done it plenty of times. So we started at the base of the mountain and began working our way up the trail. I kept looking down to the camp to see if my grandparents were outside. Once I became uncomfortable with how far we had gone, I looked to the older boy to explain to him that I wanted to turn around, and I was completely shocked that his face had changed. Completely changed. He didn't even resemble the boy we had started the hike with. I was too scared and mind blown to say anything. We walked a little further, and the woods began to get thicker, and I finally blurted out that my brother and I would be turning around, not trying to look at his face again. After grabbing my brother's arm and turning around, I heard them continue to walk up a little ways. I looked back when the boy to see his face again, and it was different again. His eyes became closer together, and his nose was almost beak-like. He looked back at me, and then that was it. We ran all the way back to camp to tell my grandparents what had happened, and they had no idea who the kids were that we were talking about. Next story. So every year my family has this huge family reunion with like 100 people that go to the same campground every year. One of the things that some of us do is a ghost walk. There's a dirt access or logging road that goes out of the campground and up into the mountains. And even though it's kind of against the rules, we'll walk up it in a group until we're sufficiently creeped out. Sometimes if we're feeling up to it, we make a 1 or 2 miles away from the campground up into the pitch black hills. We have a no flashlight rule to help preserve our night vision and to add to the creepiness. This comes into play later. So this year, it was a group of about 10 or 15 people, and they had left without me and my stepson. He was 15 at the time. So we decided we were going to sneak up on them and see how close we could get to them without being noticed. We trailed them for well over an hour on the walk, and we were definitely well over a mile, if not two, from the campground, sometimes getting within 20 or so feet of them. My goal was to sneak right up and grab one of the people in the back, but that didn't happen. Sometimes they'd get super jumpy, so we'd wait a bit for them to walk ahead. One of these times, we were hiding just off the woods, right off the side of the road. We both saw a dark outline of somebody and a dime light about 5 to 10 feet away. It looked like someone had a small flashlight and was holding their hands over the beam to try to keep it hidden. I was mad that someone had broken the flashlight rule and figured they knew we'd been following them and left an uncle behind to catch us. I whispered, "Don't say anything. We're trying to scare them." And whoever was there whispered back, "Okay." That was it. They didn't say anything else, just stood there waiting with us in the dark for what must have been 30 seconds to a minute before we took off after them. We never got close enough to scare them and heard them turning back around. So we're in the woods and stalked them on the way back, scared them right outside the campground. Once everyone got to talking, it turns out that nobody had left their group and they never had a clue we were following, so they wouldn't have left anyone to catch us. My stepson agrees that we saw and heard the same thing. Where we had the encounter was pretty off and down from the dirt road. I definitely say at least a mile and a half away from the campground. We didn't see anyone else walking, and I don't think we have ever on any of those ghost walks. It's like the 10th year we'd done it. It's stupid dark out there, and I can't think of literally zero reasons why someone would be out there, hiding off the road while my family's walking past. And it was chilling when we found out there wasn't a relative, and we had stood there with whoever or whatever it was for what now thinking back was a long time. Next story. I live in Ontario, Canada, and I'm pretty certain I encountered a Wendigo. My family used to camp a lot. And the one summer when I was about 16 or so, we went and camped by a national park in northern Ontario. We were around the fire pit. My parents and sisters were drinking beer and chatting. I left to go to the washroom, which was down the path but not too far from our campsite. And before I reached the bathroom, I heard a bubbly chattering. Being the anxious mess that I was, I started fumbling to get my phone's flashlight on. I then heard my sister's voice again, but more clearly. It was her enthusiastic, drunk voice, which she'd interrupt people with, "No, listen, listen." Except it was all choppy, like, "No, listen." And it was coming from the woods off the path. I forgot anything about needing to use the bathroom and booked it back to my campsite, where my sister was laughing and chatting quietly with my dad. She had never gotten up and left the campsite. Next story. I'm a hardcore skeptic. I don't believe in ghosts, the paranormal, even skinwalkers. I've never had any paranormal experiences before, and had never seen anything in 23 years. However, a couple of years back, I was driving back from an ex-partner's house at about 11 p.m. This is in rural Lancashire in the north of England. It was late November from what I remember, so it was a clear night with a big bright moon and very cold out, for England at least. To get to my home, you have to cut off the motorway and take a slightly rural route up a wooded road. It's not a large or dense wood. You can probably walk from one end to the other in 15 or 20 minutes. It's roughly a 5-minute drive through the trees. As I'm driving along, the road twisted and turned as it always had, hundreds of other times I'd used it. So I had to drive very slowly, maybe 15 or 20 miles per hour, in case a car came around the bend too fast. There's always accidents there. And so I was raising and dipping my headlights in full beam as you do. As I turned a corner about 30 feet in front of my car was a large, scrawny gray figure. At first, I thought it was a large branch that had fallen from the tree, so I crept towards it and put on my full beam. When I got within 10 feet of it, the creature, or whatever it was, moved as though it was doing a press up, pushing itself up with its arms, and my headlights caught its eyes, which glowed like cats do when you shine a light at them. I stopped the car, half expecting it to be just a deer and run out of the way, but the creature didn't move. It just stayed stationary, staring at me, giving me a good 10 or 15 seconds to look at it. It slowly stood up on two legs, still looking at me in the car. It was big. The top of my car probably only reached the lower ribcage area, so I'd estimate it was probably 9 or 10 feet tall. It was pale gray, hairless, and gaunt. I could see its ribcage and spine. It had long, bony arms, probably each about 4 feet long, and large, claw-like hands. The closest description I could think of is the gray bony werewolf in the third Harry Potter movie. Once I had taken all of this in and realized the situation, I began to panic, putting my car in reverse, but the creature then just turned and walked calmly and silently off into the woods, next to the road. It didn't run. It didn't seem scared or intimidated at all. It seemed mostly disinterested. I didn't hang about to investigate the area. I went straight home and locked the door. I spoke to all my friends. All but one of them thought I was joking, but she seemed to take it very, very seriously, having a similar experience in a similar area a few years before. She mentioned the word skinwalker, something I had never heard of before. She said it was a bad omen, and after doing some research I could understand why. As I said, I don't really believe in anything and I've never seen anything before, and I travel that road at least once or twice a week and have never seen anything since. I don't know. I have no explanation. I've never seen anything like it before, and in a way I'm glad I've never seen it again, if you know what I mean.